And Amy, talking about terrorist attacks. Obviously, the most recent one Saturday night in London, but yesterday we had one outside the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. This morning, breaking news right before we came on the air, two terrorist attacks in Tehran, the first known ISIS claiming credit, terrorist attacks in Tehran, where you had one was in the Parliament building, one at the mausoleum of the Ayatollah Khomeini, the founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Right. 7 dead, 38 injured in that.
That's the updated numbers. It was gunmen and a suicide bomber was the report I saw, right? And this, of course, frames the discussion in D.C. It also frames the general election in Britain on Thursday. And in advance of that election, things are heating up, as you expect they would, as Theresa May tries to hold on. Here's what she had to say yesterday at a campaign rally about the changes that she discussed have to take place in the law and in the culture in Britain. Per her statement on Sunday, she added more meat to the bone yesterday.
I mean longer prison sentences for those convicted of terrorist offences. I mean making it easier for the authorities to deport foreign terrorist suspects back to their own country. And I mean doing more to restrict the freedom and movements of terrorist suspects when we have enough evidence to know they are a threat, but not enough evidence to prosecute them in full in court. And if our human rights laws stop us from doing it, we'll change the laws so we can do it.
Going down this dark road that I suggested and we talked about a bit yesterday and Monday as well, changing the laws, restricting freedom, security over freedom. You had the prospect that was raised by Nigel Farage over the weekend. Even though he didn't embrace it, he didn't completely reject it either, of interning the 3,000 identified Muslims on a terror watch list in the UK. Now, the flip side is the alternative for Brits is even worse. Yeah. Jeremy Corbyn has been linked to a rally he attended a rally, I should say, of extremists of a banned terror group linked to the London Bridge attack. This is more than a decade ago he attended this, but Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour Party candidate, he is somebody who is referred to ISIS and their hateful ideology as just another point of view.
Oh.
So,
you think with that kind of opinion he'd be trounced tomorrow, but polls are showing that it's going to be a tighter race than people thought.
Right. And on the one hand, you have the Conservatives and May going down a path that I think would, for most Americans, would at least raise the specter of concern for civil liberties. And on the other hand, you have somebody who's got a rather messy history of terrorist sympathizing. What to do? And what to do in society in general. And this is a conversation that we need a noted commentator, perhaps a psychiatrist, more than we need one, generally speaking, on a daily basis. And so the best person I know in the Western world to turn to is Theodore Dalrymple, who wrote an excellent piece in the Wall Street Journal, Terror and the Teddy Bear Society. Mr. Dalrymple is a noted commentator, was with City Journal for many, many years, wrote many books. The last time I think we had him on was the release of his book, Admirable Evasions, which is about how psychology undermines morality in society. Excellent read. I highly encourage it. He's also a psychiatrist who's worked in the prison system in Britain. And Theodore Dalrymple joins us now. Thanks so much for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
So you've got some experience, as I mentioned just a moment ago, working in the British prison system, including with radicalized Islamists, don't you? And what is that experience?
Well, I have limited experience of that, but certainly I saw Muslim evangelism in the prison much more than any Christian evangelism. And at that time, some years ago, it didn't seem quite so creepy as as it does now.
Yeah.
But it was still very marked.
What do you glean from your experience as it pertains to prison conversions, prison religious conversions? Is there anything that we take away from that can inform how we address radicalization
Well,
and terrorism?
I'm not sure how useful practically it is, but my interpretation, for example, of the propensity of black prisoners to convert to Islam was that religion is often coming to religion is often a means by which people who are thinking of giving up crime find a reason for doing so, or a justification, or if you like, a rationalization for doing so. And with the black prisoners, they converted to Islam because it provided that religious justification for giving up crime, while at the same time allowing them not to feel that they had surrendered to the society around them by just becoming good, quiet citizens. So they preferred to convert to Islam than, say, to Christianity, because they knew perfectly well that conversion to Islam was something that the society, surrounding society, was very nervous about.
Mm-hmm. But then if conversion to religion is a way to walk away from a life of crime, the radicalization that occurs among some that leads them to terrorist attacks.
Well, I mean, some of them go on to terrorist attacks, and of course these are the continuation of crime by other means, to adapt Clausewitz a little.
Yeah.
They, of course, don't think that what they're doing is criminal. They think that what they're doing is ultimately for the good of the universe. But they don't they stop indulging in ordinary crime. So there is a minority among them who are attracted to this.
Well, it sounds like a gang rather than a religion. Am I off on that?
Well, I would say that any religion that says that the penalty for apostasy is death is gang-like.
You mentioned in your piece that I referenced, this Wall Street Journal piece, Terror in the Teddy Bear Society. We've gone culturally to a place of what a friend of yours terms creative appeasement. What does that mean?
Well, the thing is that there are signs of, if you like, appeasement without even any signs of demand for that appeasement. So that, for example, I quote a library which has tables for women only, and that is a euphemism for Muslim women only. Now, whether there was ever any demand on the library from Muslims themselves for such tables, one can't find out. But anyway, they were provided. And there are other signs of appeasement. In Birmingham Airport, for example, there's a wudu room for Muslims to complete their ablutions before prayer. Well, there's nothing like that for any other religion. And again, one doesn't know whether any Muslims actually asked or demanded it, but it's there.
What do you do exactly in the wudu room?
Yeah, it's a prayer.
Well, you
meditation.
Perform, you know that they perform. Muslims are supposed to perform ritual ablutions before they pray.
And so
they wash their hands, they clean out their mouth, they clean their feet, and so on.
It's interesting. So creative appeasement, and it's a little curious to me when people don't learn from history, especially political leaders, and particularly the UK with Neville Chamberlain's famous pronouncement in advance of World War II, that appeasement in the face of an aggressor usually encourages the aggressor.
Yes. Well, I think this is encouraging the aggressor because it indicates a society that can't say no, will not just draw a line and say that's it, and if you don't like it, it's tough. So all this kind of thing encourages them, and it encourages them to believe, if you like, that the society is a kind of rotten fruit waiting to fall from the tree. I actually don't think it's quite as rotten as all that, and I think they're mistaken in that. But that is probably what they think.
You make an interesting point as well about the arrests of known suspects, the reports of terrorist attackers who were on law enforcement's radar, but nothing was done, or at least not enough that was done to stop them, and how that feeds into encouraging other terrorist attacks.
Yes, well, I mean, I don't know whether you've noticed, but the police always make a number of arrests immediately after the attack. So that suggests that they're fully aware of the networks that these people have. And this can only encourage the terrorists, because they think that they actually are acting with impunity until such time as they blow themselves up and kill lots of people, when, of course, they're beyond the law. So, in other words, they may act with impunity and plan to do these things without interruption.
But you mentioned, too, it's not just a British problem, because in April, the murder of the policeman on the Champs-Élysées was committed by a man who had already tried to kill 3 other policemen.
Yes, this was years before, but he was let out early, and as soon as he came out, he returned to a life of crime, and he was known to be seeking weapons. He was known to be interested in radical Islam, and the police actually searched his home. They found masks and hunting knives, and were contented with the reason he gave for possessing them, that he wanted to use them for carnival.
Oh my God.
Some carnival.
And they didn't arrest him. That's just fascinating.
What's your reaction to the reactions from the civilian political leadership in Britain, as a Brit yourself, since the attack on Saturday night?
Well, Mrs. May, in her first statement, said that these people, the terrorists, had killed innocent people. Now, that in itself is a very silly thing to say, because it implies that there are guilty people for them to get, and that those guilty people are the guilty people as believed to be guilty by the terrorists. So, in effect, although I don't suppose she meant it, what she was saying was that there are people whom terrorists may justly attack. And, of course, the Mayor of London said the same thing. And this is something that it alarms me also, the idea that they're cowardly. They're not cowardly, they're extremely brave. They're evil, stupid, but they are brave. I don't think one can call them cowardly. With regard to her later statements, of course, one is alarmed about civil liberties if you go round interning people just on rather flimsy evidence. But to be honest, it's very difficult to know what else to do in the short term. And it's always very difficult to assess just how frequent such attacks are going to be. I think you missed out one, actually, in your list when you started. There was one in Melbourne in Australia as well.
Yeah. All right. He is Theodore Dalrymple, English writer, psychiatrist. His latest book, I think it's still your latest book, Admiral Evasions, is worth checking out. Want to plug that again. And as well as his latest piece, The Wall Street Journal, Terror and the Teddy Bear Society. Theodore Dalrymple, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And we have some breaking news. President Trump just tweeted, I will be nominating a man of impeccable credentials to be the new director of the FBI. Details to follow. That just came down on
Nice
Twitter.
tease.
And Theodore joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.